All right guys, it's Antonio with Black Ops Fitness. We are going over bench press setup and a couple tips and some cues to help you with your bench press. First rule, make sure you don't set your J hooks too high up. I've been seeing this across the board in the gym. It's gonna jack up the way you actually unrack the bar, and it can affect your actual setup before you go into the lift. And then also it's dangerous to get back on, especially under fatigue, because you can barely find it across the lip when you're lifting. So that's rule number one. You want to have a little bit of a press out, not too much, but make sure you're paying attention to where you set these J hooks up. The next thing we're going to go over is actually where this bar is going to hit before I get onto the bench. So where we're looking for is roughly, the center of your chest, the sternum, the bottom of your sternum where your sports bra would hit. Some say nipple line. That's essentially where we want to be. And then you're going to squeeze your shoulders back as tight as you can get them, and try to keep your forearms almost vertical to your fists. This would be not, we want them like right here. And so here's the barbell across my chest, and then my forearms are underneath my fists, which is gonna give me bone support behind this lift. And then I'm squeezing those shoulder blades together, which is putting my shoulders in a correct position so to prevent injury, but also maximize your potential. And then also I'm stabilizing with my V's, my lat muscles. That's what's gonna stabilize the bar. Once the bar comes down and it touches, I receive it, and then I press with everything I have off of my chest. There's gonna be a slight arc, which I'm gonna teach you as we go here. First, we're gonna go over setup. So there's a bunch of different ways. Some common rules. When you set your legs in place, people forget about their legs. Bring those knees under your hips. So where your feet go is essentially, if you can get your knee under your hip, that's gonna be a good position. It's gonna tighten your quads, and you have a really set, locked in position that you can drive force from when this bar and this weight comes down on you. So feet in, not out and flat. You want to try to get those knees under your hips. Where that is for your foot is going to be different for each athlete. I kind of try to keep as much of from the top to mid of my foot on the ground as possible to create a good base, and my quads are nice and tight. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is lay back without hitting my head, and I'm going to roll this bar out and make sure it's even. So I can look underneath, make sure it's even. My eye line should be just slightly past the bar. If you're any further in, you're gonna hit these J hooks when you come up. So eye line slightly past the bar, my shoulders are squeezed back. I'm trying to get my chest as high as I can, because that's gonna be less distance for lockout. And then there should be a slight arch in my lower back. But remember, this butt is not gonna come off the seat or it doesn't count, okay? The butt has got to stay drilled into the bench. Next, I'm gonna establish my grip. You can use the knurling as a reference point. A good beginner's reference point is to put your thumb on the edge of where the grip starts and then wrap it. And that'll give you a perfectly even grip. But use the two rings as well as a visual cue, and try to play around with some different grips and see where you're strongest. The pros are gonna go really wide if they're thicker athletes, because that's gonna be less distance where they have to lock out. So the narrower, the farther you gotta lock out, depending on your body type. I'm gonna go about a half an inch from the first ring with my pinkies, set my shoulders, make sure my feet are locked in. And that would be a good starting position. If I want to add to that, I would put my feet up, lift my butt, establish my grip, lock in my shoulders, step one foot down, step the other foot down, make sure everything's in tight, and then press off. Now, as soon as I press off, I establish control, and I'm squeezing back on my shoulders and my lats. I hold a big breath, and then this bar comes down in a slight 45-degree to that nipple line we talked about. I receive it, it touches, and then I drive it back off my sternum to about my chin level. And that establishes that 45-degree arc. I receive, drive off. As I come down, a big breath, and then press everything I have to get it off me. And that is the bench press, guys. So remember the cues. We want our shoulders back. We want our lats wide, because they're gonna stabilize. Make sure you don't skip any of the basic fundamental setup positions. Make sure your J hooks are correct. Make sure your bench is centered on the bar. Make sure the bar is centered on the rig. Make sure your J hooks are low enough that you have some space to get this bar off the rig. So those are the basics, and then making sure you establish control as soon as you come off, because remember, there is weight over your neck and head. So this can be dangerous if you're not dialed in and clicked in. And then the biggest error I see are not using your lats to stabilize, not receiving it. If you think of a thin plate of glass, you've heard me say this countless times, we want to touch that glass, but then we don't want to break it. So you're not bouncing it off your chest, but you're also not stopping before it and kind of not knowing where you're at every single rep. So bring that thing down, stabilize it, receive it, and then drive with everything you have to get it off your chest from that little vertical 45-degree angle from sternum to chin. And then you lock it into place. And that's the bench press, guys. Big belly of air as always. Those should be all the cues you need to really have a strong bench press and really be conscious of where your forearm is in relation to the wrist under that bar. Outside of that, you just gotta freaking bench more to get stronger, guys. So good luck, and we'll see what happens tomorrow.